This is very relevant at the moment. It's just days until the U.S. marks, as you know, 20 years since the 9/11 terror attacks. Well, this as pretrial hearings for the accused architect of the massive terror plot are set to begin. Right now, I'm being joined by Fox News correspondent Lucas Tomlinson. He is down at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba with the latest. And Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the trial has been put on hold because of the pandemic. It's now going forward. Lucas, what have you learned?
Well, Andrew, great to join you, and greetings from Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, here on the southeastern corner of the island. What I've learned is that here we are at the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, and these pretrial hearings, in fact, Andrew, in nearly a decade since they've started, there's no sign this is going to trial anytime soon. They've stretched for nearly a decade, largely procedural, but to be here in the courtroom behind reinforced glass and to look at Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, better known by his initials KSM, when you look at this monster, this accused mastermind of the 9/11 attacks, it's really surreal. It's like, is this looking like at the Mona Lisa, or is it just this terror mastermind like going to the zoo from hell and seeing this guy, along with, by the way, his nephew and 3 other planners of the 9/11 attacks? What struck me is, you know, if somebody steals a carton of milk in the South Bronx and goes to jail, that person is in a, prison garb. These guys are practically waltzing into the courtroom. Yes, they're under U.S. Army guard, but they're practically, strutting into the courtroom, smiling. Ramzi bin al-Shiba was wearing sunglasses the other day. I was like, what the hell is going on? And these guys are all smiles in the courtroom. They're talking to their lawyers. And by the way, the female defense attorneys that the U.S. taxpayer pays for, they're in full conservative Islamic garb. They're wearing hijab. They're covered head to toe. The female U.S. military lawyers are not. There was one new lieutenant commander who was not covered, but everybody's wearing a mask except the detainees. 2 of the detainees were wearing U.S. Army fatigues, which I think most of your viewers would find insulting. Why are these guys allowed to wear, U.S. Army jackets, desert fatigues? Clearly, they're still at war. So also, some people are wondering, how are you charging war crimes against people the U.S. is not at war with? U.S. military has been at war since 9/11, but it's just incredible. 20 years of the 9/11 attacks, these cases, it's a death penalty case here in Guantanamo. It's never been to trial. These are all pretrial hearings. They started nearly a decade ago in 2012. And in fact, just this week, the 7th judge took over, Andrew, the 7th, Air Force Colonel Matthew McCall, and he has been a judge. He's been on the bench for 2 years and 1 day, barely squeaking by the 2-year minimum.
Lucas, there's been so much question about, in previous administrations, what to do with Guantanamo Bay and with the remaining prisoners there. Can you kind of give us a sense of that angle to this story? Does the Biden administration, do they want to shut down Guantanamo, and who's still there?
Well, my observation this week, Andrew, is that Guantanamo has been largely forgotten. In fact, a lot of people listening to this right now are like, oh, Gitmo, I haven't thought about that in a while, and that person would not be wrong. The Biden administration wants to close down Gitmo, but I think if you Googled that or looked for some articles besides Carol Rosenberg in the New York Times or Tara McDermott in the LA Times, you won't see much copy because it's just not covered. In fact, these hearings only take place for about 6 weeks a year. You have to get on a U.S. government transport. You have to fly from Andrews Air Force Base. And it's a little surreal sitting on a plane. You look around, first of all, there's 9/11 family victim members, they're sitting there. You have defense attorneys, you have prosecutors, you have FBI agents, you have journalists. It's really surreal, a motley crew, if you will. And then you get here. This is, of course, a U.S. naval station. Long before Gitmo was synonymous with the detention camps. Of course, the Marines have been here for years. In fact, just today I took a tour with the U.S. Marines of the fence line. I mean, like everybody's seen A Few Good Men. I toured the fence line today. You looked over into Cuba. It's a territorial Libre de America. Like free from America, where the border is. You see the Marines, you see them standing guard in the watchtowers. There's minefields outside of here. I mean, this is a U.S. naval base with Marines, with sailors, colors, just like you're on a base or a warship, every morning at 8 and at sunset, evening colors. But of course, these detention camps, and years ago, those notorious for some orange jumpsuits and Camp X-Ray. And it's pretty interesting. 15 years ago this week, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the 9/11 mastermind, as well as about 13 other high-profile prisoners were transferred here to Gitmo from the CIA black sites. Of course, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was captured in 2003. Some of the other co-conspirators as well, not long after, in Pakistan. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, of course, born in Kuwait and graduated from a college in the United States at a small school in North Carolina A&T. And of course, graduated and then later went into a life of terrorism starting in Afghanistan. And 4 of the 5 ex-Gitmo detainees traded for Bo Bergdahl, now back at top levels of the Taliban. 20 years after 9/11 attacks, the Taliban are back in charge in Afghanistan, and some of their top leaders, top officials were former Gitmo detainees.
Lucas, last question for you. What will you be watching for as the trial gets underway? It's been so long. Will they finally, carry this out to fruition and get some type of definitive verdict?
Well, Andrew, this case has not been to trial yet. In fact, these are all pretrial hearings, and they've dragged on for nearly 10 years. And so I think the best description of the reporter gave this week is he didn't think anything was supposed to happen this week. It's all about being here for the 20th anniversary and seeing these, the minutia of court, just seeing these motions, and it just seems like every day has been like a little baby step. You got the 7th judge there now, questions about his background, which can stretch, for hours. And it just doesn't seem like they're getting very far. And, part of the reason this is a death penalty case. So, of course, the standards are higher. The fact that you have a 7th judge and it's just dragged on for so long, it's just different than any other kind of capital case. The first time the U.S. government has tried 5 defendants at once. This is a military tribunal. Of course, we're in Cuba. We're in the, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. This is not the mainland. Let's just talk about cost. It costs $13 million a year to house a Gitmo detainee. There's 39 of them remaining. There are 5 that are right now in these court hearings, these pretrial hearings. But outside of the 5 that I've been watching in the courtroom, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Ramzi bin al-Shiba, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's nephew, Amr al-Baluchi. I mean, these are some, most people would say these are some very bad men. I mean, in addition to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, his nephew accused of wiring $125,000 from Dubai to the terrorists. Others, Ramzi bin al-Shiba is the head of the Hamburg cell. Most of your listeners and viewers remember Mohammed Atta. He put that cell together, and he's called the 20th hijacker. He actually did not make it into America. He probably would have been on one of those airliners. And of course, 15 of the 19 hijackers being Saudi. There's a Saudi suspect in court, and but there's 39 Gitmo detainees now. Some people who think this should have moved to the United States years ago. In fact, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, there was talk of moving him to New York, almost like facts on the ground, put him in New York. It was actually Senator Schumer who helped block that transfer. But you look at, there are terrorists in supermax prisons in the United States, particularly in Florence and Colorado. You have, the 20th hijacker, the Unabomber, Masawi. You got all kinds of terrorists and that is much cheaper. It's about $70,000 a year to house those terrorists, and they've been convicted in a court of law and are serving life. Now, of course, when you're talking about the death penalty in a U.S. military case here in Gitmo, that's one of the reasons this is stretched on for so long. But right now, there's no trial date. I can't emphasize that enough, Andrew. There's no trial date set. There's been no jury on their 7th judge. Here we are. This just continues to drag on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, which most people, it's just unbelievable, actually.
Unbelievable is right. Fox News correspondent Lucas Tomlinson there in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. We appreciate your expertise and your reporting. We'll talk to you again.
Thanks, Andrew.